Good evening. Elvis Presley died today.
The world is shocked by Elvis Presley's sudden death after attempts to save his life failed.
I knew right then and there that something horrible had happened.
Elvis Presley was pronounced dead in 1977.
I was raised on Elvis. We started when I was 10 years old. My mother and daddy loved him because we love Elvis. We still do.
I just can't believe he's dead. It's terrible.
Yet his legacy never faded. For years, rumors have floated around that maybe, just maybe, he didn't really leave us.
Yes, the truth is getting out. Elvis is alive.
And then comes Bob Joyce, a preacher with a startling resemblance to the king himself, down to the voice and magnetic presence. Is it possible that Elvis traded in his blue suede shoes for a quiet life under a new name? Why are fans so convinced this preacher is the king in disguise? Can this really be Elvis? At first, the rumors about Elvis being alive were just shared among the most dedicated Elvis fans. But once people got a glimpse of Bob Joyce, those rumors turned into a full obsession. Fans couldn't help but notice the striking resemblance between this humble pastor and the king of rock and roll. And as the theories gained traction, social media went into a frenzy. Facebook groups, YouTube videos, and fan forums became battlegrounds of believers and skeptics alike, dissecting every photo, every sermon, every song Pastor Bob sang as if it held the key to a decades-old mystery. To his congregation, Bob Joyce is just a devoted pastor, a man of faith. But to those who still believe Elvis is somewhere out there, Bob is much more. The king, hiding in plain sight, carrying on the legend in the most unexpected way. Despite the wildfire of speculation, Pastor Bob Joyce has been consistent in his denial of any connection to Elvis, beyond shared features, and perhaps a certain soulful quality in his voice. Over the years, Bob has addressed these rumors, often with a touch of humor, sometimes with patience, and occasionally with the exasperation of a man who just wants people to see him for who he really is.
I am not trying to lead people to believe or make them believe that I'm somebody that I'm not. If anybody says so, they're wrong.
In 2016, Bob made one of his most direct statements about the rumors, a message that was as heartfelt as it was clear. Acknowledging the similarities, he expressed deep respect for Elvis and his impact on music and culture. But Bob didn't hesitate to clarify, "I am not Elvis." With that single line, he hoped to end the mystery once and for all. But Bob didn't stop at denying the rumors. He presented logical proof. First, he pointed out a simple fact. Their ages don't align. Elvis was born in 1935, while Bob came along years later, making it impossible for them to be the same person. He also drew attention to their vastly different lives. Elvis was a world-famous star whose life played out under the public eye, while Bob chose a quieter path, one devoted to faith and community. I don't want to be Elvis. I just want to be me, with maybe a hint of Elvis coming through, if that's what people hear. Every time Bob Joyce addresses the rumors, it's like adding fuel to fire. Fans hang on to his every word, criticizing his denials, dissecting his tone, and searching for any possible slip-up that might validate their hopes. Rather than quelling the conspiracy, Bob's efforts to set the record straight often seem to backfire. For many true believers, his hesitancy to entertain the topic further is taken as proof. Surely, they think, he's hiding something monumental. It's as if the more Bob insists he's not Elvis, the more convinced some fans become that they've uncovered one of the greatest secrets of all time. Over the years, fans have gathered what they consider irrefutable proof, piecing together clues as if they were solving an epic puzzle. The first, and most obvious, piece of evidence lies in the photos. Social media is filled with side-by-side comparisons of Bob and Elvis, images plastered across forums and Facebook groups, showing the two men in oddly similar poses. Fans point out the strong jawline, the piercing eyes, even the hairstyle that recalls Elvis's iconic look. To them, these are not random coincidences. They're proof that the king never truly left. Some people have made outlandish claims that Joyce apparently wears a mask to hide his true identity. Then there's the mannerisms, Fans have scoured through video footage, watching Pastor Bob's sermons, noting every tilt of his head, every smile, every little gesture that they say mirrors Elvis. They even match old photos of Elvis to present-day shots of Bob, pointing out identical features. For many, though, the most compelling evidence isn't what they see, it's what they hear. Pastor Bob's voice is a showstopper, filled with a depth that only reminds fans of one man, Elvis. His vocal style carries that same smooth Elvis twang that makes listeners sit up and pay attention. To believers, hearing Bob sing is like being transported back in time, as if Elvis himself were serenading them from across the decades. Hymns sung by Pastor Bob are meticulously compared to Elvis's gospel recordings, with listeners poring over every detail, the rise and fall of his voice, the depth of emotion, even the pauses and breaths. For those who believe, it's not just a resemblance, it's proof that only Elvis could sing with such raw passion. But it's not just the voice that fuels this theory. Fans recount stories and personal encounters with Pastor Bob where they catch glimpses of something undeniably familiar. There's the way he greets people, the gentle gestures, a certain charisma that feels all too reminiscent of the king himself. Some say they've seen Bob flash a smile that looks exactly like Elvis's, or that his eyes spark with that same mischievous charm. Fans have even drawn comparisons between Bob and Elvis's laughter, and honestly, they sound weirdly similar. Just hear it for yourself.
Oh, God. Oh, man, I tell you.
Wouldn't it be a sad thing if everybody walked in like I did? I mean, you know, good God. I say, where am I at church or at a funeral? I don't understand what's going on.
To believers, these aren't random coincidences. They're the subtle signs of a man who, despite leaving the stage behind, can't quite shake the star within. And then, there are the expressions. Fans tell stories of Bob using phrases and expressions that sound way too similar to those Elvis was known for. Sometimes it's a turn of phrase, other times it's the way he pauses mid-sentence, like he's choosing his words carefully. These moments feel like breadcrumbs, like little clues dropped by a man who can't help but let his past life slip through now and then. As for Pastor Bob, he's never dodged the shadow of Elvis Presley. In fact, he often embraces it. In public statements and sermons, Bob speaks with admiration about Elvis, recognizing his influence not just as a musician, but as a cultural icon whose legacy has left an indelible mark on the world. For Bob, Elvis isn't just a legend. He's a figure worthy of respect, a man whose spirit still resonates with millions. And while Bob insists he's not Elvis, he acknowledges the parallels between their lives, their shared roots in small-town America, and their deep connection to church and faith. Pastor Bob's story is just one piece of the larger puzzle. Countless alleged Elvis sightings have fueled a pop culture phenomenon that keeps the mystery alive. The infamous Elvis sightings. August 16, 1977, was a heartbreaking day for Elvis fans around the world. But while fans were mourning, a strange story was unfolding. On that very day, a man showed up at Memphis Airport, purchasing a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires, Argentina. The man not only bore a striking resemblance to Elvis, but also used the name John Burroughs, an alias Elvis was known to use. Was this just a look-alike, or had the king staged an escape from the pressures of fame? Then came another sighting. On December 31, 1977, just months after Elvis's reported death, a visitor to Graceland named Mike Joseph captured a now-famous photo. The image shows someone who looks suspiciously like Elvis, sitting in his pool house. When asked about it, Joe Esposito, Elvis's close friend, insisted that the man in the photo was actually Al Strada, one of Elvis's employees. But for many fans, that explanation didn't feel right. Building on that theory, people started to believe that Elvis didn't go far after faking his death. Instead, he returned to Graceland, blending in as an unassuming groundskeeper. According to news reported by the Daily Express, a particular gray-haired, ponytailed man working on the Graceland grounds has drawn some curious attention. Video clips of this groundsman have made their way onto YouTube, sparking a flood of comments that point out his uncanny resemblance to an older Elvis, now supposedly around 85. While skeptics argue that this groundskeeper seems a bit too short to be the king, true believers are undeterred. To them, this is a clever disguise, allowing Elvis to stay close to his beloved home, hiding in plain sight. But Graceland isn't the only place fans believe Elvis has popped up. One of the strangest theories claims that the king made a secret cameo in none other than Home Alone, the 1990 holiday classic. Released 13 years after Elvis's reported death, this theory suggests he appears in a scene where Catherine O'Hara's character, frantic to get back to her son, argues with an airline employee. Behind her, a bearded man in a sports coat and turtleneck stands, looking distinctly impatient. According to conspiracy theorists, this background extra bears strikingly familiar features and mannerisms, leading them to believe it's Elvis, making an unexpected on-screen appearance. Why Home Alone, though? Well, the film's director, Chris Columbus, also directed Heartbreak Hotel, a film about teenagers trying to kidnap Elvis. Fans speculate that after seeing Heartbreak Hotel, a supposedly alive Elvis reached out, asking for a small cameo in Home Alone. And for a cherry on top, they point out a playful Easter egg. 10 minutes before this scene, young Kevin McAllister is seen lip-syncing to White Christmas, his hair slicked back in classic Elvis fashion, a subtle tribute to the man himself. By the late 1980s, the Elvis sightings shifted to a seemingly unlikely place, Kalamazoo, Michigan, a city where Elvis had performed just 4 months before his death. In 1988, a local woman named Louise Welling swore she'd spotted the king himself in line at the Felpausch supermarket. According to Welling, he was decked out in his iconic white jumpsuit, casually purchasing an electrical fuse. Not long after, Welling's daughter claimed to have seen him again, this time munching on a Whopper at a nearby Burger King. So why did these sightings make such a splash? According to Elvis expert David Adler, there's a peculiar detail that makes this story oddly convincing. Burger King was by far Elvis's favorite fast food chain, Adler told the Los Angeles Times, almost as if the king's cravings had led him straight to Kalamazoo's local burger joint. For the believers, this was as close to case closed as they could get. Elvis was alive, wearing his white jumpsuit, and enjoying his favorite fast food in a quiet Michigan town. Even decades after these alleged sightings, the legend of Elvis in Kalamazoo remains alive, with fans visiting the town and hoping to catch a glimpse of the king living the simple life, one Whopper at a time. For some die-hard believers, known as Alivers, the truth about Elvis's supposed fake death lies right on his tombstone. According to this theory, there's a significant clue hidden in plain sight at Graceland. Elvis's middle name appears on the tombstone as Aaron, rather than the original spelling, Aaron. To Alivers, this wasn't a simple mistake. They argue that the famously superstitious Elvis would never use his real name on a fake grave, leaving a subtle hint for those willing to look closely. However, not everyone is convinced. Skeptics argue that the spelling change isn't a clue, but a choice Elvis himself made. Later in life, he began using the more traditional spelling, Aaron, to match the biblical name he found meaningful. But for Alivers, this misspelling remains an intentional nod to the idea that the king isn't really resting 6 feet under. Moving on to the actual truth that led people to believe that Elvis might have faked his death. Did Elvis fake his own death? The death of Elvis Presley was surrounded by mystery and speculation from the very beginning. While the newly built Methodist South Hospital was just under 2 miles from his iconic Graceland mansion, Elvis was instead transported 15 miles away to Baptist Memorial Hospital, a place he was known to frequent. This decision, along with some other mysterious details, set off a wave of rumors and conspiracy theories that only intensified over time. Many initially suspected an overdose, a claim met with strong denials until the results of his first autopsy. Still, a second autopsy report exists, sealed from public view until August 2027. This level of secrecy has only fueled the imaginations of fans and conspiracy theorists alike, who are convinced that the king's story isn't over yet. No wonder, the idea that Elvis Presley is still alive remains as captivating today as it was in the wake of his passing. The notion that Elvis could have faked his own death or quietly slipped away from the public eye taps into a wider cultural phenomenon, one that has led people to question the fate of other musical icons, from Tupac Shakur to Jim Morrison. One of the most intriguing conspiracy theories links Elvis to the mafia, suggesting that he had to fake his death to escape threats against his life. Gail Brewer Giorgio, author of the 1988 best-selling book Is Elvis Alive?, fueled this theory with what she claimed were compelling arguments, including research into FBI files that, according to her, hinted at Elvis's possible involvement with organized crime. Brewer Giorgio went so far as to suggest that the king personally called her to describe the whole ordeal. In interviews, Brewer Giorgio described Elvis as a true American hero and maintained that there was more to his story than what the world was told. When asked directly if she believed he was alive, she responded, "Do I know if Elvis is alive today? No, I don't know. But I know he didn't die on August 16. Her words only reinforced the idea that official reports of the king's death might have been more fiction than fact. In her book, Gail describes that Elvis had connections with a criminal organization known as the Fraternity. With deep respect and admiration for the FBI, Elvis reportedly agreed to act as a mole for the Bureau, gathering information on the organization's activities. However, as the story goes, once his cover was compromised, the danger became so severe that the FBI had to step in, faking Elvis's death and placing him in witness protection to save his life. Elvis faked his death because he was going to be killed, and there was no doubt about it, Gail told Time magazine, asserting that his decision to disappear wasn't just a matter of escaping fame, but of saving his own life. She claims FBI documents back up her story, though other experts disagree, saying that, aside from records showing Elvis's favorable remarks about the Bureau, there is little in those files to support her tale of undercover heroics. Elvis Presley's admiration for the FBI might indeed have stemmed from his own brushes with the darker side of fame. Over the years, Elvis was the target of multiple extortion attempts, a consequence of his massive popularity and influence. In response, the FBI kept a detailed check on the singer, not because he was working undercover, but because his fame made him a frequent target of threats. Patrick Lacey, author of Elvis Decoded, debunked the theory that Elvis was involved in a high-stakes FBI operation, noting that all of the Bureau's files on Elvis are publicly accessible. "Those FBI files are available to the public. I have them. There's nothing in there," Lacey told Time. He emphasized that the evidence overwhelmingly supports the official story. All of the evidence points to a death, the medical evidence, the eyewitness report. Lacey explained that if Elvis had indeed faked his death, it would have required an unprecedented cover-up involving hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals over the years, each maintaining secrecy without a single credible leak. For experts like Lacey, the tale of Elvis as an FBI mole or a hidden hero is simply a captivating myth. The belief that Elvis Presley is still alive dives into a deep psychological phenomenon tied to the way fans perceive their idols. When Elvis first exploded onto the American scene, he was a breath of fresh air, a sensation like nothing the public had ever experienced. He was young, vibrant, and electrifying, embodying a new kind of energy that captivated millions. For his fans, Elvis represented a moment frozen in time, a larger-than-life figure who defied convention and seemed invincible. But as the years went by, the image of Elvis that fans held in their hearts began to change. Aging took its toll, and by the 1970s, Elvis looked noticeably different from the rock and roll heartthrob he once was. The world watched as he struggled with health issues, gained weight, and lived through the demands of fame in ways that were sometimes difficult for fans to accept. The final image of Elvis, a man performing in Vegas, dealing with illness and the pressures of stardom, was a far cry from the fresh-faced phenomenon he once was. For many fans, watching their idol become a shadow of his former self was simply too painful. Accepting his death meant confronting the fact that Elvis was human, vulnerable, and ultimately mortal. This discomfort, paired with an intense emotional connection, likely contributed to the birth of the Elvis is alive theories. believing that he faked his death, that he escaped to live in peace, offered a way to keep the king as they wanted to remember him. So, with all these clues and sightings, what do you think? Did Elvis really pass away, or is the king still out there? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more.